Hello world, Augustine Cortez coming live from Web3, documenting today's learning. And today was probably one of the most historical days that I've had. And the reason for that is because I exercised everything I've learned these past couple months, and I had a visual articulation of judgment. So I sat down and started whiteboarding. I love the act of whiteboarding because it's boundless and you summon course systems to illustrate the complexity of the system itself. So you have subsystems within a system, and a whiteboard is a great way to illustrate that. And you get into a creative rift where you start focusing on the subcomponents, and then you start speaking out loud, and you enter a very creative flow to document what you're trying to, or I should say something that you've had in your mind, but you haven't summoned and you haven't put into words, you haven't put into illustrations, and whiteboard is a great exercise for that. And what I did today was essentially document the economy of cognia, and it really falls under one core component, and that's tokenomics. So my biggest realization these past couple of weeks in blockchain in the space was that tokens are the end product. Tokens are more than blockchain itself. Tokens are the ultimate form of exchange of value. Blockchain is just the base that tokens use to validate the concept. Blockchains aren't tokens. Tokens are more of a grand thing. And what a token is really is just it's mechanisms of incentives. And the beautiful thing about tying tokens to blockchains is that you can create mechanism of incentives in specific ways. We see this with DeFi. DeFi was one of the first areas that leveraged blockchain because it tackled money, finance. That's one of the most difficult areas to jump into. It's one of the most regulated. The government has it close to the chest. So the fact that blockchain was able to create an infrastructure and a system for DeFi prove that, okay, there's some form of trust that is profound here, because how can someone come up with something out of thin air and carry the same cultural trust and value exchange of money? That's historic. That's why Bitcoin was monumental. It was a transcend form of thinking and introduction to trustless operations. And that was just one blockchain of Bitcoin. Then we got Ethereum, the computation aspect of blockchain. And then we got Solana, and then we got Tesla's evolution of chains. But chains are just a vehicle. What matters is what's being done. What's the purpose of the token? So right now with the main chains, we have, it's called the protocol currency. This is Bitcoin, this is Ether, this is Sol. This is the unit of currency that the chain uses for the interaction. But what makes things exciting is that you can build on top of these chains to create a new token. And this is known as an ERC20 token in Ethereum, and Solana has their own token mechanism, but basically it's you're just creating a form of exchange. And the exciting thing and the cool thing too is that it doesn't have to be value based, it could be purpose, where you want to reward people and give them a metric. It could literally be saying, oh, you completed something, here's a token to recognize for this. And it could just be based off pure subjective value with no purpose to be tied to extrinsic value like a dollar, right? Where it's currency based. So with that premise, it's a token can be created and you can create an economy with it. All right, think about the USD, the GDP of the government relies around the token of the US dollar. What does the US dollar do? Well, it makes people operate and work to get income to allocate for themselves, invest, and spend, right? But the premise of that is that people work, people exchange their time and energy for money, for the currency of a US dollar. Where has it been a time where you could get paid in a different currency than the one that your government gives you? No time, no point in history where you can get paid in another currency than the government, the one in your peripheral government. But now with crypto is you can get paid in another type of currency. You can get paid in Bitcoin. The new mayor of New York is taking his first checks and being paid in Bitcoin. He's not being paid in US dollar. He can convert his Bitcoin into USD, but he's getting paid in Bitcoin. This currency of Bitcoin is valid for him to accept it and utilize it however he like. If he would like to use the Lightning network to pay for transactions, or he just wants to store it as a medium of value, more like a storage value, I should say, like a digital gold, well, yeah, he could do so. But the fascinating thing is that he's getting paid in Bitcoin. He's not getting paid in US dollar. This is a politician, one of the people that is part of the government. They're not being paid by the product of the government anymore. Bitcoin is not a product of the United States government. Bitcoin is a product of humanity. And this is why Bitcoin has such a strong narrative, is because it's not tied to government. It's not tied to geographical landscape. It's the entire world. It's the entire internet. So with tokens, where does this lead to? Well, Bitcoin is just one token, and Bitcoin doesn't really focus on, I would say, tokenomics of a stronger currency. Or what I mean by that is Bitcoin is, I would say, collector of general value, right? If you have Bitcoin, it's like having this digital gold. Everyone can agree that digital or gold itself in the real world carries value, right? It's just this, it's like the mechanisms of money. Speculative value as scarcity, it's portable, it's divisible, and all the elements of gold, right? It was one of the first areas that governments started to base their currency off a rare, scarce commodity. Then we got into fiat, and now we're getting into crypto. So what's essentially happening is that currencies are evolving. Bitcoin is the most generally accepted, we can say, right? It's like the gold, but you can get specialized. You can have Ether, which is more about usage. It's more about consumption. It's more about, you want to have Ether not necessarily just to store it, but to use it. And if you use it effectively, your Ether and your judgment with it is, it should yield you a return, whether you put it into DeFi, whether you buy an NFT. Ether moves. It's more of like a dollar, right? The difference between gold is you hold gold. You don't pay and utilize a transaction with gold. But with the dollar, which is more like a fiat currency, you use a dollar, like you move it around and it's not as static. So this is Ether, but then you can add another layer. And this is the beautiful thing about the chains, is that you can create a specialized niched currency. And if you get people to believe in it, then you got an economy. We were seeing this with altcoins. We're seeing this with tokens that people just want to utilize. And this is where very advanced economics, finance, allocation, yield, staking pools, liquid pools come into fruition and shine. Because let's say that I purchased $100 of an altcoin. I put my $100 of this coin and I stake it, and I say, okay, operate like a bank. You move this $100 as you would like. I'm like, okay, bet, we're gonna do this, and they do it, and then your $100, excuse me, essentially became $120. Okay, like they moved your money for you, and this altcoin made you more money. Why? Because these people know how to move it. They either got more users, they got more liquidity into the pool, and they made the process of increasing the intrinsic value of that coin. That's just in DeFi. there's so many areas that this can tap into, that the intrinsic value of a coin can be picked up and it can start accumulating. We're seeing this with the Ohm DAO, right? The Ohm DAO is essentially an unpegged stable coin, because their algorithm with their utility or yielding factors, if you put Ohm tokens, their liquidity process will yield very strong returns for the users. And they also have like a safety net that the Ohm won't be under $1. It's an insane mechanism that they built for this coin. And you buying the currency, buying the token, you're saying, I believe this economy that is being created and I'm part of it now because I have the token. It's like I'm buying into this government, into this token, in this ecosystem. And by me being early, I can get more return, right? The earlier, the higher risk, but the higher reward. So this whole concept of tokens being the epitome of blockchain and Web3, it's the ultimate product. It's the introduction of new economies. It's the form of exchange of value. What is this? What can you do with this? Well, you can do anything. And today I sat down and I don't say this lightly, but I want to create an economy between the exchange of value for learning and educating. It's that simple. If you learn or you educate, you will be redeeming value in the form of a token, and it will carry intrinsic value. It's quite simple. You learn, you earn. You educate, you earn. And you receive this token. It's a very niche token. It's not like a US dollar. It's not like a Bitcoin where it's generally purposed. It's based off the sheer focus of learning and educating. And this economy has so many elements that create relationships, that create complexity, that you have axioms and protocols and processes that the tokens will be proving themselves. The protocol, the process will essentially get more validity as more users adopt it, and then it becomes the mainstream form of the niche. And that's the beautiful thing, is that the earlier you are, the more people like, oh, this is really cool. Let me come in here, and you start getting market share. So let me give you an example. Let's say we build this protocol, this token, right? We'll call it Cognio because I'm fascinated with this idea that we created of Cognio, which is the intellect heaven. And we'll ideally leaning towards the goal of calling the token Cognio. It's a beautiful thing, derivative of the keyword of cognition. All right, so with Cognio, say you have Cognio tokens, we minted, or we're doing uncapped limit on Cognio, but we're sticking to bonding curves. But the whole premise is tokens exist, Cognio tokens exist, and we have learners and we have educators. So let's say that there's an educator out there that's competent, that people believe will be sharing valid information, has legitimacy, and they share curriculum. Okay, well, what happens here? Well, we can create a protocol that we have moderators to verify and validate the curriculum. Then we have learners interact with the curriculum. They vet it, they grade it, and if they essentially say it's a good product, okay, the educator gets Cognio tokens. Okay, well, what happens next? Well, the learner can start learning and going through processes, and they can start earning Cognio tokens. Like, okay, well, what's next? Well, then the Cognio token can be utilized to say, oh, you want to essentially get special access with this educator or this educator, you got to pay a certain amount of token. Like, okay, so this educator now has Cognio tokens. Like, okay, well, the incentive is you just don't want to make people hold the coin. They got to utilize, they have to use it, spend it. What can this educator do to spend the coin? Well, this person can essentially use the coin where they say, I want XYZ, where in this case, let's say that the educator wants to build a school, and this entire economy has been flowing where we, the creators who should have majority ownership because we minted it, will have value. Where we say, okay, let's say that our market cap is $100 billion and the educator has 100 million worth of Cognate token and says, I want to liquidate my Cognate tokens into, let's say, 100 USD, 100 million USD for the goal to build a school. Okay, well, let's exchange. Let's do the process of moving the currency and moving the token from Cognate tokens into USD for the transaction to make the school. And this whole premise in this economy of incentives and utilization of the token starts coming to fruition, where you now have an economy. Now more learners come in, and then you can do influence tokens where it's not necessarily with the goal of influence, but rather more about legitimacy and validity. So let's say there's 5 educators and all of them teach the same subject, but one has influence tokens that you earn by getting good feedback from learners, by getting audited and having valid curriculum, by organizing it very effectively in a pedagogical manner. This educator can now have more influence tokens. So out of the 5 educators, the ones with the most tokens in the influence case will be better graded, better vetted. So learners can be more confident to select the one with the most influence. And this creates a better learning experience. And then this entire flywheel of other incentives come into play. And it's a beautiful thing because it's an economy about learning and educating. So this is the philosophical riff, right? But translating this into a protocol, into an algorithm where you have axioms of truth, where you have a step-by-step process of XYZ happening, what yields the outcome, that has to be articulated very, very carefully. This is engineering where you rigorously test the theory, systemize it, try to break it, try to prepare for as many elements. This is where the point of the economy I'm at is, I feel I have essentially maybe around 80% of the incentive processes done. I need to focus more probably on the usage of the coin, what can incentivize people to liquefy the currency and the token, not just for them to hold it, because currency has to move. And essentially it's also known as burned in tokenomics if there's not a finite amount. So how do people spend money? How do you get people to spend money? Okay, that's one area I need to start doubling down and start cracking. But then also, what are the axioms of the truth? What's proof of knowledge? What's proof of skill? What's validity? How do you get auditors? How do you create a vault that rewards based off certain graded capabilities? And it's madness. It's pure complexity, but it's a beautiful thing because I feel that this is my life's work at the moment. It's creating this economy, and if it works, imagine if it works, how big of a shift it would be. People get paid to learn, people get paid to educate, quality information is out there, it's valid across the world. Humanity becomes more educated. I don't think the world would be damaged if more people were educated. I think the world would be a much better place if more people were educated. Exponentially beyond our imagination, like complex theory, it is uncalculatable, it's dynamic, it's adaptable. We can't calculate the outcome if more people were educated, but we know it'd be for the better collectively. Whether we focus on climate change, more innovation in security, in engineering, with cars, with bridges, with infrastructure, with policy, with ethics, with clean energy, all the things that are big challenges at the moment could be addressed in a more effective and proper manner, because our epitome and current levels of knowledge are expanded, right? It'd be a beautiful thing if we can make this work. So this is where we are. Like I said, big day, lots of learning and executing this. So I'm excited. I'm really tired, but I am also very excited. This is going to be a hell of a ride. But if you're watching this far, genuinely appreciate you. Know that we appreciate you. Know that your support goes a long way. If you're an early believer, right now is the time to reach out, because right, our attention can be very focused towards you, and um, any venture that's early, the first adopters are the most meaningful, because they're taking the earliest risk with the idea, and they're the ones that can carry the idea further. You are the people that progress the ideas. All right, so I'm gonna stop here. Some more work to do, but exciting times. Let's build this economic system of learning and educating to progress the world. Thank you.